Well, all right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. It's your buddy CJ here. And tonight, we're talking about all things automotive industry, the automotive enthusiast hobby, cars, all the things that those real gearheads are interested in talking about. This is the place to be for that real gearhead talk. You know, your buddy CJ bringing you all that real gearhead talk. Come on. That's what this podcast is all about. We love talking about cars around here, people. If you're new to the channel, give me a like and subscribe. If you're one of my returning subscribers, you know your buddy CJ loves you. Thank you so much for rejoining us. Guys, this is the place to be, where we talk about cars and exotic cars and muscle cars and classic cars and automotive industry stuff and motorsports and rallies and road trips. Listen, we talk about it all around here. You know, growing up as a car guy, as a gearhead, this is what we love doing, guys. We love getting together and talking about cars. That's what this channel is all about. That's what it will continue to be about. And we do it with love and joy and respect. So come on, let's keep going. By the way, take a look at your buddy CJ's Christmas tree. Are you kidding me, guys? Come on. I decorated that tree. Listen, it's how I express myself and my Christmas joy to you. 2024 has been the best year ever. Can we just all agree? It's been a great year. Listen, now we're into the winter. There's just a few days left in the year. And tonight's topic for real gearheads, let's get right to it. Tonight's topic, we're going to have a three-way dance. Let me tell you something. We're going head to head. We're facing off 3 sports cars that I think you should consider buying. I get asked this question all the time. Anywhere I go, you know, your buddy CJ travels all around. I meet all kinds of people and always doing automotive events across the country, across the globe for that matter. Okay, in all my business adventures and everything I do, people want to talk about cars quite often. And I get the question like, CJ, you know, it's been my first car as an automotive enthusiast. What do you think? What should I consider? And the question came up recently. And I said to myself, you know, I don't think I've really done an episode where we kind of said, look, clean slate. If you're going to get into this hobby right now, 2024, 2025, as an automotive enthusiast, and you want a really great sports car, what would that even look like? What should you consider? So I'm going to give you 3 great choices of 3 fantastic sports cars, all very different, okay? That scratch different itches for the automotive enthusiast, but will all serve that purpose to get you involved in the automotive enthusiast hobby, that will bring you great joy, that are all performance champions. And specifically, the 3-way dance, the showdown tonight. We go in Porsche 911, Ford Mustang, and Chevrolet Corvette. Those are the 3, the big 3. Listen, are there 3 more iconic performance cars? I think not. We could sit here all night and talk about performance cars. We're not. What we are going to talk about is a Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Corvette, Porsche 911. What are the different key attributes of each? For you, in making your purchasing decision, I'm going to let you in on my head, in my decision tree, how I evaluate these 3 different cars in terms of what their upside is, what the best of these 3 iconic sports cars are, and then what the downside is, if there is any, or dare I say some of the things that you got to be aware of that maybe aren't so great. I'm going to lay it all out. Listen, I got that real gearhead talk. You know I'll give it to you straight. I'm going to tell you what I think, but I want to hear from you guys. Leave me those comments. Maybe you think your buddy CJ's wrong. Maybe you disagree. That's cool. We can disagree and still be friends. You know, as a car guy, as an automotive enthusiast, your buddy CJ loves you. And I just love talking about this stuff. And I know you guys do too, because you leave me tons of comments. You're involved on Instagram with Hot Seat Gearheads. I see you out at the events. We email, we text, we correspond, we instant message. Let's get into this. Come on. Guys, let's start the 3-way dance. I'm going to tell you what I think. For the guy that's seriously considering getting into this hobby for the first time, or maybe it's been a while, or you want to kind of up your game and get a dedicated sports car. Number 1, this is for a dedicated sports car. This is not for daily transportation. Number 2, the other criteria I'm going to give you is can't go over $100,000 budget. Now, $100,000 is a lot of money to spend on a sports car for fun. Okay? But let's go under the assumption Listen, you could spend 40, you could spend 60, you could spend 70, but you can't go over 100. That's my criteria. Okay? So if we can survive and agree in that criteria, I'm going to go through the Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Corvette, and the Porsche 911. We're going to talk about options, upside, downside, and hopefully help you make a decision. I'm going to tell you what my decision would be and why for each. But I want to hear from you. Did I miss anything? Come on, let's get into this, guys. Let's start with this. Guys, it's an American hero. It's the American pony car. It's the Survivor. It's the Ford Mustang. Let me tell you something. Since 1964, the Ford Mustang has been a huge part of our hobby, okay? And it's the Survivor. The Camaro is gone. The Dodge Challenger Hemi is gone. Who remains? The Ford Mustang. Guys, this car is an icon of performance. It is the backbone of much of our hobby. Let's be blunt. The Ford Mustang is one of those backbone cars, okay? You have a massive following as a Ford Mustang enthusiast. You have a massive following of this car, okay? There are hundreds of thousands of buddies across the country and across the globe right now with Ford Mustangs. So here's what I want to say about it. We're looking at a beautiful Mach 1 here, okay? You know, with a $100,000 budget, you can get any Mustang you want. Barring a few, I'm talking about something you can actually drive, not like some collector's piece. But for up to a $100,000 budget, you can get any Mustang you want. You can get a fully goosed out GT, okay? You can get a GT 350. You can get a supercharged GT 500, blow your mind. You can get a Mach 1. Pick it, especially on the used market. Let's say anywhere from 3 to 8 years old. You can have any Mustang you want with my budget of up to $100,000. In fact, for between $30,000 to $40,000, you can get a fantastic newer Mustang GT. The car is thrilling to drive. It's got high performance compared to your everyday daily transportation, right? The thrill seat of your pants feeling of driving a performance car is there in a GT, in a Mach 1. Okay, certainly in the Shelby cars, in a GT 350 and a GT 500. A thrilling car to drive. It sounds great. It makes the noises of an American performance car. You've got a V8, okay? Yeah, okay, EcoBoost boys. I know you're out there, V6 boys. Yeah, you get a lot of performance out of that as well. But let's talk about the specific top of the mark performance models, because for the guy that I'm talking to tonight, you thinking about buying a sports car dedicated maybe for the first time. You don't want no EcoBoost. Listen, your buddy CJ going to tell you right now, you don't want no V6. You want the V8. You like your buddy CJ. You want something that's top of the food chain. And what I'm here to tell you is you get a nice GT, okay, $30,000 to $40,000, $50,000, you can pretty much go new. That $50,000 to $70,000, you're looking at like a nice Mach 1, fully goosed out, okay? You're starting to get into GT 350 territory. Probably the upper limit there, $70,000 to $80,000 to $90,000. Now we're talking GT 500s. I know they're out there for higher asking prices, but you can get into that upper echelon of super high performance mega Mustangs, right? If you want to go a little bit older than my 5 to 8 years, you can get a previous gen or 2 generations back, S197, whatever, GT 500. You can get a lot of car for that money. With that $100,000 budget, you could spend half of that budget and get a lot of car for the money. So, in terms of performance, in terms of enjoyment, you'll get it all. The other thing too is, and let's take a look, guys. I want to show you the other car, which I think is a fantastic option. I mean, look at this. Look at this. Ford Mustang GT 350. It's a Shelby car. Are you kidding me? For $60,000, $70,000, you can get a great example of one of these cars. It's got that voodoo engine. It's got the manual transmission. It's a track weapon. Okay? This is viewed by many folks to be like the ultimate Mustang of the modern era, even more so than for some people than like the GT500. GT350 is where it's at on the used market, right? You could consider one of these with that budget of up to $100,000 and you'd have room to spare. Okay? So the upside of the Mustang includes this great performance in any of those trims I mentioned, the noise they make, okay? The availability of aftermarket parts and upgrades. There's so many aftermarket bolt-ons and modifications from an aesthetics and appearance standpoint, as well as from a performance and drivetrain standpoint. Wheels, tires, handling, suspension. You can get it all modified if that's your jam on the Mustangs. And there's lots of people who can work on Mustangs. Like, it's not an exotic car. It's not a complex car, quote unquote. Okay? So availability of aftermarket parts, availability of resources around how-tos and online forums and communities that can help you with your Mustang, all strong points. You'll also be in good company. If you're a guy that likes being a part of a club like the Mustang Club, okay? There are countless Mustang clubs and groups and road trips and rallies dedicated to Mustang guys and track days and car shows dedicated to Mustangs. So you will be a part of a massive community with a massive following loving this great iconic American sports car. And I'll just reiterate, you could buy a lot of Mustang for up to a $60,000 budget. Forget about the $100,000 budget. Yeah, there's $100,000 Mustangs and beyond. We're not going there tonight. What I'm saying is in that sweet spot, 50, 60,000, 70,000, you're going to buy a lot of performance car in a Ford Mustang. Now, I want to be real with you because I said I give you the upside. Now I'm going to give you the downside. And it's probably not a downside per se, but I'm going to be real with you because your buddy CJ is always honest and sincere as an automotive enthusiast, and I got to say it. Mustang has a massive following in part because there's a massive amount of Mustangs. So it is not a unique car. Yes, you can get unique trims. I know. You can get a GT350R or some obscure color in a GT California Special. I had one of those. They can be unique, right? Unique as a Mustang, but go to any parking lot or grocery store or airport garage, and you will see dozens and dozens of Mustangs on any given day. Drive around your town, any town USA, you'll see Mustangs. Why do I share that? A lot of people using them as daily transportation. There's nothing wrong with that. This is not a criticism. This is great. But if you're a guy that wants a unique car and you want to stand out and be a little more differentiated, the Mustang may not be for you. The Mustang may not be for you because even if you have something a bit unique by way of color or trim package or options, it's still a Mustang. It's still one of the most mass-produced Ford products, the same company that brings you the Explorer, okay? And the Focus brings you the Mustang and minivans and pickup trucks. And again, that's not trashing the Mustang. That's just being real with you that, it's not terribly unique or distinctive. But some of you don't care. And you say, CJ, I don't give a darn. I want, the American hero, the pony car, the muscle car, sports car / muscle car that's been in production since 1960s. And I want to be a part of this massive community. And I want to modify it. And there's so many mods available. Mustang might be the right car for you, but it's not a terribly unique car. From a budget standpoint, you get a lot of performance for your buck, but you're not going to stand out. I'm going to be real with you. You will not stand out in your Ford Mustang. And I've had a bunch of Mustangs. So don't you guys give me any of that lip. Leave me those comments. I love hearing from you. But listen, I've owned Mustangs. I'll probably own another Mustang one of these days. I always got my eye on something. But I'm just letting you know that if you really want to stand out a bit, Mustang may not be the right call for you. But come on. Listen, we got to move on. We just talked about the Ford Mustang, all the upsides, some of the realities of ownership and all that other thing in terms of being a part of the automotive enthusiast community. But I'm going to keep it real and keep moving. Come on, let's keep it pushing, CJ. Let's take a look at the next car we want to talk about tonight. Listen, if you're a guy who wants to reward yourself with a really cool sports car, or you want to get into the sports car community and the performance car community, hard to argue with a Chevrolet Corvette. We happen to be looking at a C8 here. Doesn't have to be a C8. With a $100,000 budget as an upper limit, you can pretty much get a ridiculous high-performance, two-seat, legit sports car in a Chevrolet Corvette. Now listen, you've got a lot of options here with the Corvette. Let's talk about the upside. Number one, it is a true sports car, seating for two. Your Mustang's got the back seat. This thing is a two-seat sports car. No one will ever mistake a Corvette for daily transportation. Yeah, I know. Some people daily their Corvettes. I sometimes daily a Corvette. I'm known to do that from time to time. But bottom line, you look at this car. This is not practical transportation for 90% of Americans. This is a sports car for the automotive enthusiast or for the enjoyment of performance driving. That's what this machine is. And the Corvette has always been a technology innovator, if you will. It always includes in each generation a certain element of pushing the limits around technology and innovations, okay? Whereas the Mustang has done some of that, but not as much, okay? Like a Ford Mustang is more of a brute performance pony car. Your Corvette gets you into that legit two-seat sports car, either with a C6, C7 with that big long hood out front with that American V8, okay? Or a C8 mid-engine, rear mid-engine car, super ridiculous high performance, right? The bar just keeps moving. But you don't have to go C8. Let's take a look at another option. And again, with that up to $100,000 budget, guys, if you're in the market for a sports car in 2025 and you want something that gives you that legit two-seat experience, big, powerful American V8 out front, it's hard to argue with the C7 Corvette. Manufactured up through 2019, okay? We're looking at a Grand Sport here. Grand Sport's a beautiful spec car. A lot of options, aesthetics, okay? Plenty of power, very well balanced. You can start getting up to the Z06 performance level with that $100,000 budget that we talked about, okay? C7 ZR1, you might be looking at the upper limit. You might go through that budget. So let's take the C7 ZR1 off the table. But C6 Z06, C7 Z06, C6 ZR1, I think you could still snag one for under $100K. Like, you can get a ridiculous two-seat, legit sports car, okay? In any spec you want with that $100,000 budget. So the upsides of the Corvette is that you will feel like you are in a performance machine every time you get in it. It'll never feel like daily transportation. It just doesn't. I've driven tons of Mustangs. I've owned them. I've driven and owned tons of Corvettes and just about any other car you can imagine. The Corvette always feels like I'm in a performance machine. I'm a race car driver in that Corvette, right? Whereas in the Mustang, you're going to get less of that. I'm just being real with you. The Corvette, you legit, whether it's a C4 or a C5, even going back to that era, right? You're sitting in this thing, the way it sounds, the way that hood looks, the styling, the lines, it will continue to remind you that you are in a performance machine. And again, the upside of being an American Chevrolet product, the aftermarket support, bolt-ons, add-ons from a performance standpoint, or from an appearance aesthetic standpoint, similar to what I said about the Mustang, but generally speaking, Corvette is going to cost you more. So now we get into some of the downside. And by the way, as part of the upside, there's a huge Corvette community. There's countless Corvette clubs and Corvette events all over the country, all over the globe. Okay? You have all of that with the Corvette, just like the Mustang. Generally speaking, you're going to spend more on a Corvette. That's just the reality. For anything you do in Mustang world, generally speaking, a Corvette is just a little bit more to get into, equivalent, like for like. year for year, like comparing a 2018 Mustang and a 2018 Corvette, for the similar specs, if you can even say that, air quotes, the Corvette's just going to cost a little bit more. 2020, look, 2022, look at a C8 versus a 2022 Mustang GT, Corvette's going to cost just a little bit more, maybe 20% more, whatever it might be. Getting into the Corvette realm is kind of the next step up. Mustang guys, you ain't going to want to hear that, but it's real talk. Getting into the Corvette realm, like for like, going to cost you a little bit more. In some cases, a lot more than a comparable Mustang. Okay? That's just the way it is. That's just the way it is all around. Okay. The downside, again, hard to say there's a downside with a Corvette because they're great. They're like the Mustang. They're another American hero. It's part of the backbone of our hobby. But guys, I got to be real with you. Hard to stand out in a Corvette as well. If you're a guy who really wants to stand out in the automotive community, again, listen, maybe that's not important to you. I'm just letting you know, at the Cars and Coffee, at the car show, you're going to see Corvettes everywhere. And depending on where you're at in the country, maybe Corvettes are still kind of rare. But in certain cities and towns that I've been to across the country and even elsewhere in the globe, where there's a significant automotive enthusiast presence and the hobby is active, you're going to see a lot of Corvettes and a lot of Mustangs. So yes, there's special edition Corvettes. And then there's this whole ranking of, well, I have a Stingray and I have a Coupe. Oh no, I have a Grand Sport. I'm better. Oh, I have a Z06. I'm better. I say don't buy into that. They're all great. They're just different trim packages. Same thing with the Mustang. Like, GT350. Well, I'm a Shelby. I'm not a GT. I'm not a Mustang. I'm a Shelby. I'm better than you. Get past all that, okay? Because I don't subscribe to any of that nonsense. But what I will tell you, there's no hierarchy. We're all just automotive enthusiasts, regardless of what we drive, hopefully. My point being that standing out, though, if that is important to you, okay, not so much a hierarchy of whose car is better, but just standing out and being unique. Some of us like to be unique. Some of us don't care. As long as I have a fast, fun, reliable car that puts a smile on my face, I don't care. I don't care if there's 10,000 of those within a 5-mile radius of my house. Okay, cool. Then go with the car that puts that smile on your face. Corvette, Mustang, fantastic cars, unique attributes. The big differentiator for me is if you want something with a bit more practicality, a back seat Mustang, you're a little bit more budget conscious within that $100,000 realm, anywhere along the continuum up to $100,000. You're a bit more budget conscious. You're probably looking at more of a Mustang. Okay, if you want to get like your newest possible car, perhaps still under warranty, for the lowest possible cost with the most practicality, you're probably looking at Mustang, people. Now, the Corvette ticks a lot of those boxes, but Corvette is all sports car. Make no mistake. Yeah, I know some of you cats daily it and you put a roof rack on it and you trailer with your Corvette. I see you. I know who you are. And I drive my C8 Z06. I put 5,000 miles on that car in a year. Now, maybe that doesn't sound like a lot to you guys, but I drove that car, right? Like I didn't, it's not a garage queen. I went on road trips and rallies and automotive events and all over the place, out to the beach with it. And I've always done that with my cars, most of my cars. And you can do that with a Corvette. It's reliable. You can go to any Chevy dealership if you have a problem and get it worked on, or any local shop. A lot of people know how to work on basic Chevys, right? Corvettes, basic Fords, Mustangs, very common platforms. Okay. But again, those are sort of some of the upsides, the downsides. And again, practicality with the Corvette will be a little bit more limited. You can't fit as many groceries in your Corvette. If there's no back seat, if you got 2 girlfriends, you can't fit them both in the car, fellas. You can't fit any kids unless you put them in the trunk. Don't do that. Your buddy CJ says, do not put your kids in the trunk of your Corvette. Don't let me find out you're doing that. Come on, guys. We're having fun tonight. Now, let's look at option number 3, because we're going to step up now. Hear me out. Hear me out, fellas. If you want to step into the realm of European performance, get your feet wet, put your toes in the water of exotic cars, you should consider stepping into the realm of the Porsche 911. I'm taking the Boxsters and the Caymans off the table. The 911, listen, if you reach a certain point in your life with a certain budget, you should own a 911. I encourage you to. Why? The 911 is just more sophisticated, guys. The other cars are great. Love my Mustangs, love my Corvettes. Porsche 911 is just next level. That's just the way it is. Okay? It's a more sophisticated car. I didn't say it was faster. I didn't say it was more thrilling. Okay? Seat of the pants, it will not throw you back in your seat, pound for pound, like for like, if you will, in terms of budget. The Mustang that you buy on a certain budget versus a similarly priced, dare I say, category 911, if you can even find one, the 911 is not going to be as fast as that Mustang or that Corvette, pound for pound. But what it will get you is a more surgical, precise, refined driving experience, okay? So the Porsche 911 is not for the guy who wants to, with a $100,000 budget, you are not going to get the fastest Porsche on the planet. You're just not. And there'll be a lot, if you want the fastest car with that seat of the pants, throw me in the back and pin me to the seat, throw me in the back, throw me backwards when I accelerate from the stoplight. At a $100,000 budget, the Porsche would not be the right car for you. Okay? But if you say, look, I've had muscle cars, I've had pony cars, I want to step into European performance, I want to get that refined Porsche 911 experience, that's why you buy this car. It is not the least expensive to buy. You're probably looking at the upper end of that budget to get, something relatively, lower miles, something a bit newer, 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017 Porsche 911. You're going to be looking at the upper limit of that $100,000 budget. You might get a Carrera S. You might find a Carrera 4S, something like that, convertible if you're into it. But again, Porsche 911 is for, the guy that wants something a bit more distinctive, okay? And by the way, guys, let's take a look at another example. That was a 992 generation 911 we were just looking at. But here we have an earlier Porsche 911 cabriolet or convertible, if you will. Guys, what I want to tell you is, perhaps the greatest benefit of having a Porsche 911 is it just feels like more of a status symbol. And I'm just going to say it, right? For every Corvette, Mustang that you see, Challenger, whatever, on the street, 350Z, you name it, common cars that you see on the street every day, you probably see 1/10 or 1/20th or less, a percentage, a small fraction of all those cars that you see every day are going to be Porsche 911s. It's not even close. And when you go to the Cars and Coffee or the car show or the automotive enthusiast event and you say, I have a Porsche, okay? And I have a 911, there's an air that goes along with it. I'm just being real with you. In our hobby, the 911 has an element of prestige that the other cars don't. Real talk. And if you don't like it, if that offends you, it's probably because it's true, right? Like the 911 is just more refined. I don't care about which car is fastest, okay? Don't sit here and start with the quarter mile times and the track times for an $80,000 Porsche. I get it. It is not at the top of the food chain when compared to some of those other cars, pound for pound, okay? But it does a lot of other things better. It is a different driving experience. The interiors of these Porsche 911s, generally speaking, are much better in my experience. You're going to get into a Porsche 911. I encourage you, do this. Don't take my word for it. Okay? Go to your Ford dealership, sit in a few Mustangs. Go to your Chevy dealership, sit in a few Corvettes. Don't even drive them. Now, go to your Porsche dealership, sit in a few 911s. You'll see the difference in quality very quickly. Sitting in a Porsche 911 feels like a special place. Okay? It feels a bit more prestigious. Okay, it's more of a status symbol, and if that sounds some type of way, or you disagree with me, that's cool. Leave me comments. But I'm just telling you like it is. Like the Porsche 911 is that next level. Now you're not going to get as much 911. Now the downside. Let me give you the bad news. You ready? I'm fair and balanced. Don't ever say your buddy CJ isn't fair and balanced. You know I'm going to give it to you straight. But guys, the Porsche 911, you're talking about the upper limits of that budget. It's an expensive car. It's sort of getting into the exotic realm. Okay? You're probably going to want to bring it to a Porsche dealership to get it maintained. Okay? It's a German car, right? Modifying a Porsche 911 is going to cost you more generally than modifying a Mustang. Okay? You know, listen, you're not going to get the upper limit of performance out of, if you look at like a Porsche GT3, forget about it. It's way over my $100,000 budget. Okay, Porsche Turbo S, the top of the food chain in terms of fast Porsches, you're not going to get a modern, 4 or 5 year old, 6-year-old Porsche 911 Turbo S, super fast car, ridiculous face melting speed. You're not going to get that Porsche for $100,000. You might find a ragtag, beat up, dogged Porsche 911 Turbo S for that money, but I doubt it. Not one that you'd want. Come talk to your buddy CJ before you buy that car. So, cost of ownership, Porsches are known for having really good quality, but there can be maintenance issues, right? And if you're going to modify the car, your cost of ownership for the Porsche could be higher, okay? Not necessarily. It's not like you're probably not going to have a lemon on your hands, but generally speaking, getting into the car is going to cost you a bit more. Modding it, you got to find a shop that knows their Porsches, and then if you get into any failures of components and it's out of warranty, it's probably going to cost you, right? More than what it might cost you for a commensurate Mustang or Corvette. But you will be unique. And again, everything I said about the community, there's a huge Porsche community, but at that $100,000 price point or $80,000 price point, when you go to the Porsche events, you're going to be surrounded by cars for $150K, $200K, $300,000 Porsche. Like, the sky's the limit, and that's nothing. Like collectible Porsches, like these guys are out there driving their cars. I see them every weekend, everywhere I go, right? Like the Porsche community is just, everything is kind of that next level, in terms of who plays in that realm, what the other cars will look like, all those things. It's going to take a lot to stand out in there. But in general, if you have a Porsche 911, that's not like every other common car on the road. It's still a relatively uncommon car. And just look at the manufacturing runs. Don't take my word for it. Look at how many Porsche 911s are sold every year for the past 10 years. Compare that to how many Mustangs have been sold. It's not even close. Compare that to how many Corvettes have been sold. It's really not close. Porsche 911 is a more distinctive car. So guys, those are a few of my thoughts. Listen, which one should you buy? It is subjective. I would tend to say if you've got the legit budget up to 100K, I want you to drive both because they're both great cars in terms of Corvette and 911. I want you to drive both. And I would tend to say there's no bad choice between those two. It's going to come down to what thrills you and what is most important to you as the automotive enthusiast. If you're more budget conscious and want something like, hey, CJ, what's the most reliable, newest, high-performance car I can get with some practicality, you got to go with the Mustang. And you won't regret it. You'll enjoy that Mustang. Is it a pure sports car compared to like a Corvette? We could debate that. More of a pony car with some practicality. It is sporty. Corvette's probably your more of your pure sports car by my definition. Step into a 911, you're talking about upping your game from a budget standpoint, probably from a cost of ownership standpoint, depending on how long you keep it, but you will have a more prestigious car. You'll have a more refined driving experience. It will not be the fastest car, seat of your pants, okay? A Porsche at that level, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 is not going to give you that American V8 muscle experience with that throaty V8. No, it's a bit more chill and refined in some ways, but then driving it, man, it's so dialed in compared to the other cars. It just does everything well. The Porsche 911 just does everything well. And If you disagree with me, you probably haven't driven that many Porsche 911s. You got to go out there and drive them. So, number one, your buddy CJ says, go out there and drive them. But most importantly, I want to hear from you. What do you guys think? Do you agree with my points? Do you disagree? Do you find what I shared helpful? What are your thoughts? Ford Mustang, Chevrolet Corvette, Porsche 911. Which one is the optimal sports car for the new automotive enthusiast or for the automotive enthusiast in general to consider buying in 2025 as a dedicated, fun sports car? Guys, you tell me. Hot Seat Automotive Podcast. You know your buddy CJ loves each and every one of you. Give me that like and subscribe. Leave those comments. And until I see you on the next one, peace.